So anyways, you got these two-bit hoods here who think they're really something. They also think they're tough and dangerous, and they're not. They're just, you know, cowardly and corner dwellers, and they confuse their unwillingness to abide by reasonable rules as indication of their heroic courage, which is something else that low-rent hoods like to do, you know. And it's partly because lots of people who just attend to the law do that because they're cowardly, which is a Nietzschean observation. Are you good, or are you just afraid? Well, let's start with afraid first, before we proceed to good. And that the reason that you follow the rules is because you're afraid of getting caught. Yeah, well, you know those kids who, often university kids who are in like a hockey riot, and they end up breaking windows and stealing things, and you know, they get nailed for it, and afterwards they're really blown away by their own behavior. It's like, well, they're in that camp. It's like they think they're good people, but they're not. They're just never anywhere where you could be bad. And as soon as you put them somewhere where they could be bad, it's like out it comes, just like that. And that's really worth thinking about, because most of you, many of you, but not all of you, I suspect, have never really been somewhere that you could be really bad and get away with it. And so you might think, well, you wouldn't do it, but people do it all the time. So anyways, they're talking about some exploits, and then they see that this character named Stromboli, who's a marionette, he has a puppet show, right? And he's kind of a wheeler dealer too. And remember, I showed you that mask that was glaring at Pinocchio when he got his voice? It's like Stromboli is one of his manifestations. The fox here is another one of his manifestations. And all the negative characters throughout the movie are manifestations of the same thing. It's partly the adversarial individual, and it's partly the tyrannical aspect of society. It's the negative masculine. That's one way of thinking about it. So, and you know, when men go bad, they often go bad by being antisocial and tyrannical. So, you know, where there's way more antisocial men than there are antisocial women, which is why there's 20 times as many men in jail as there are women. You know, so each gender, let's say each sex, has its own characteristic pathologies. And there are some antisocial women, you know, and there are some high neuroticism guys who are, or some guys who are really agreeable as well. So, but they're rarer. So anyways, he sees this poster advertising Stromboli's puppet show. So Stromboli's a puppet master. Now that's really worth thinking about, because that's an archetypal theme, or it's at least attached to an archetypal theme. Something's behind the scenes pulling the strings. And everybody always wonders what that is, right? What's actually going on? What's actually going on with Trump? Who's actually in control? Is it Putin? I mean, that's the fantasies of the left. It's Putin. It's like, well, the question always is, what's going on behind the scene, right? And the question is, that's the case certainly on the political landscape, business landscape, interpersonal relations. What are you really up to? Everyone's always wondering that, right? That's why they're watching your eyes, because your eyes point at things, and they can infer what you're interested in and what you're up to by looking at what you look at. And that's why your eyes have whites, is so that we can see where you're pointing them, because gorillas don't. And so what that means, roughly speaking, is that all of your ancestors whose eyes couldn't be reliably tracked were either killed or didn't mate. It's a big deal for us to see where people's eyes are pointed. And so we're always watching each other's eyes constantly. What are you up to? What are you up to? What are you looking at? What do you want? And I want to know, because if I know what you want, I can predict how you're going to behave. And that also means I can cooperate with you, or I can compete with you, or I can lie to you. But all the information is in the eyes, surrounded by the facial display, right? Because that's also an indication of motivation and emotion. And so we're like, our eyes are so good at that for you guys sitting there in the back, I can tell if you're looking at my eyes or at my chin. And the deviation in your eyes is so tiny that it's a kind of miracle that we're capable of making that perceptual observation. It's really important to us. So, and we have really good eyes, so that's another thing about us. So anyways, what's going on behind the scenes? Well, if you look at Stromboli, you might be thinking, it's not clear he's someone you'd want to have pulling your strings. Like, there's a little bit of forced enthusiasm, let's say, there, and he's just not a very savory looking character. So anyways, the fox knows him, and they start talking about Stromboli, that old joker, and then how they could possibly involve him in some sort of scam because he's back in town. And then they see the puppet, and the fox does his equivalent of thinking, which is, you know, pretty sad and nasty, but that's what he does. And then they see this puppet with no strings, and they think, hey man, a puppet master would pay a lot for something that is capable of semi-autonomous movement like that. It would be kind of a miracle. And so they decide that they're going to take him to Stromboli. And so they grab him, and he's got an apple to take to the teacher, which I think it's the cat promptly eats. And the fox acts out this sort of false enthusiasm about what Pinocchio is up to and pretends that he's his friend, which is of course what your typical pedophile will do. And so this is in the same kind of category, and it truly is. So, and one of the things that's interesting to know about pedophiles is that they're predatory, right? And so they don't go after kids that are assertive and likely to be noisy. They watch. And they watch to see if they can find a kid who's defeated, and that's good enough. Who's defeated, and who's going to need a friend, and who's not going to object. And so when they check out, these are the ones who do the stranger abductions, which are, by the way, extraordinarily rare. They look for a victim type. They look for a kid who's going to be easy to take down. And so, you know, that's one thing you don't want. So you might think, well, one of the things that was really big, and it's probably even worse now, when I was a parent of young children, was to teach your kids how to be afraid of strangers. It's like, no, wrong. That is not what you teach them. Because all you do is teach them then to be timid and fearful, and the real predatory types, they're pretty much thrilled about that, because you'll also make them sheltered and naive, you know. So that isn't, you make your kids courageous and you get their damn eyes open, and that's the best thing you can do to protect them against people who are truly dangerous. So none of that terrifying them. It's